Hi, everyone. We'll just wait a couple of minutes for folks to join in. I'll put the link to the meeting notes in there. Please put in your name in the attendees, as well as your affiliation, and also if you're a new member or you want to talk about something, just put a note by the side. Just a show of hands, who wants to talk about the OpenSSL thing today? Any keen interests? Or is that beaten to death right now?
I hear it's mostly only affected Windows, so I'm kidding.
So anyone here running an AD? No. Alright.
Hello.
Hey, Frederick. We'll give it a minute more. Let me read the meeting notes in the chat.
No, I was a bit sad about missing the verifiable SBOM talk, but I had a commitment that I needed to finish up as part of the conference. So, but do we know which group that's going to fall under? Is that going to be like a CNCF thing or an OpenSSF thing, or is that an independent effort?
So when you say the verifiable S1, do you just mean kind of like the Slack channel that was created and the discussions there?
There was a discussion on Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is, I think, kind of just like Justin's kind of trying to kind of drive that. I think that's under kind of his work and not. I don't think we've established anything under the CNCF right now.
Cool. And who was that? I missed who it was.
Justin Campos.
Okay, Justin Campos. Okay, so I will reach out to him then. Thanks.
Cool. So for those that just joined, I think we're gonna start off. I just put the meeting notes in the chat. Please go in and fill up your name as well as put your affiliation. And if you're a new member, please mention that as well. So this is the tax security weekly meeting. We rotate between this timing of a meeting as well as the EMEA time zone friendly meeting, which happens at for lack of a better way to express time zones, 8 a.m. Eastern, because that's what I'm familiar with. Usually these meetings are either a working session, which what we have today, or a presentation. And quick note before we get started is that this meeting is being live streamed to YouTube. Participation in this meeting is acceptance of adhering to the CNCF and Tax Security Code of Conduct. We do request if anyone is able to help out with kind of taking some notes as a scribe, that would be super helpful. So I'm just gonna go through the quick updates. First, before we get to that, do we have any new members in the group that are joining today? Okay, looks like all familiar faces. And it was good to see a lot of folks in person, and seeing how tall everyone was for the first time in KubeCon. Cool. So let's quickly go through just like personal updates, and then we can go on to like the group updates and just chatting a little bit about what folks found interesting at KubeCon, things that maybe we should talk a little bit more about. And if we have some time, we can talk about the OpenSSL stuff if it's interesting to folks. Cool. So I think the only update that I see is from Shlomo. Do you want to do a quick update for us?
Yeah, so I'm sort of new to actually collaborating here, so I'm not sure how we, if this is more like a stand-up thing. I posted a few issues. One was this 996, which is a presentation submitted by somebody who I actually met at KubeCon, and I would be interested in potentially helping out with that. I wanted to highlight that, and then I just posted a couple of PRs that I put in update documentation. If anybody wants to take a look.
Awesome. I think if you know this person, it will be good to be able to. So we have you see the issue that's like tag wrap, schedule date, and like making sure that the presentations follow the guidelines. It's not a vendor presentation and all that. If you can help with kind of coordinating with them for the scheduling and opening the issue, I would be more than happy to be the tag representative for this. So if you can help fill that information out, that should be good to go.
Okay. I don't have the ability to edit issues, but I can.
Yeah, just comment on it, and then we'll pick it up.
Great. On that.
Awesome. I think you had two other issues.
Yeah, so I had a couple of small pull requests for some of the documentation, which I think, Brandon, you've seen. It's the first one. I was just going through after KubeCon trying to figure out what issues there are that I can contribute to. So I was going through the list, and I found a couple of things. So I posted pull requests for those.
Okay. That's good. I think we already have Michael review that, and I'll review that as well. And the last one that you had was.
So this was an issue that somebody posted with 724 was let's see, this is an issue from a long time ago. To essentially suggest was a suggestion to post some help information if spell check fails. So I went and implemented it.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's an example output.
That is super cool. Let me also add myself on the review as this.
Great.
Cool. This is super awesome. This work with kind of facilitating the pull request process is very helpful. Yeah.
And these are all things that, or not this so much, but the previous one was fixing documentation which was sort of related to being a new member. There was some confusion around, just to give some background. The first time contributors MD file had some information about steps for becoming a contributor, and I was going through those, and at the end there was some information which didn't really seem to match up with the README. So that fixes that. Hopefully improves that experience.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And for folks that want to comment on these issues, please go ahead with that. Okay. Before we get into kind of chatting about KubeCon and topical things, any updates from working groups? I know that there are a couple of leads from the groups here. I think Brand, you're part of the controls working group.
Yeah, kind of a quick update because I know John has presented kind of the roadmap previously for kind of the controls working group, and so kind of been discussing, what are we going to be getting after, and a large part of that, one as it relates to NIST's OSCAL, Open Security Controls Assessment Language. In order to really start building out comprehensive automation, there's kind of a definitive lack of language support that we're not visionary in stating that there's a lack of it currently, but there is a lack of it, and basically wanting to define paths forward there. There are a couple key languages that we want to tackle just because they're familiar for those on the team, and then two, partially related to some of the underlying automations that we want to build. So the next steps are to kind of coordinate with NIST and see if there is a path forward, better documentation issues that we can submit against OSCAL, basically try and outline all the paths towards emphasizing what value this would bring to the ecosystem. And once that foundation is kind of solidified, then I think it would really assist with making a lot of progress on the underlying security controls roadmap. So it's kind of the current path and progress forward.
Is this kind of like an engineering gap that needs resources, or is this kind of more on this to provide the kind of a more detailed specification to build something?
I'd say it's a bit of both. There's certainly work that I'm not going to say NIST has to do, but there's a lot of gaps with that engineering documentation in order to really help facilitate building out this ecosystem. So I'd say it's a pretty equal balance of getting NIST to help articulate exactly what they would like to see from open source, and also how to test and validate that the things people build as extensions on OSCAL are valid and compliant with the schema and the underlying kind of like meta schema concepts. So definitely that. And then once some of that kind of is built out or even just addressed, then engineering resources, I'm not going to say anything strictly required, but once that's available and we can start to identify where to place some of these libraries and develop them, then definitely be available to get people who are interested pointed in the right direction to help build that out for whatever language might be most suitable for the problem they're looking to solve.
Awesome. And I think when we get to that point, I think it'll be good for us to sync up to the main meeting as well, see whether we can help, if there's no one working on that, to see whether we can help contract out some of this work.
Sounds great.
Any comments on Oscar work controls group? Michael is interested in the Oscar stuff. I guess send Brent your email so that they can include you in the chain for that as well.
Yeah, I think I know one of the challenges has been they have I don't know if they changed it, but I know that they had community meetings for the OzCal stuff, and they're also on yet another messaging system. Is it Gitter or something like that? Yeah, it's
Yep, get her.
yeah. So it's I know for a lot of folks, it's like they belong to 5 Slacks, 2 Discords, a couple of Microsoft Teams, and now there's another thing, Matrix and all that stuff. So yeah, it's yet another.
Yeah, they try to tie it to your GitHub account ID as well. So you have to have a GitHub ID to communicate, if I remember properly. They may have changed it, but historically that's how it was established.
Awesome. Let's see. I think we also have the zero trust controls group. I'm not sure whether there's anyone on the call, but I know that they are looking for contributors and have a outline of the document that I'm gonna post in the chat here. So we are currently looking for more contributors to look at specific areas and to write out specific parts of this document, as well as to kind of just review the high level to make sure that we don't have anything that's missing from this paper. Another thing that we want to ensure is that we get the right folks in. I think right now we have folks from IBM, from Google, and TIA from Ratna. So I think that it's still very vendor heavy. I think it would be good to see more end user or kind of like policy aspects of this in as well. Cool. Any updates from other areas?
Yeah, I think one of the things from the supply chain security side, I don't know how many responses we've gotten on the survey. I'm hoping that now that KubeCon is over, more folks might have some more time to fill out the survey. And for folks who aren't aware, actually, I don't. Do you have the link, Brendan?
1 second, let me get it.
Yeah. So just to bring it up, so we the supply chain security working group wrote up a survey that we want CNCF projects, so projects underneath the CNCF itself, to fill out, so that we can kind of better understand the state of supply chain security within the CNCF project. So it's mostly just some basic details about stuff like, are you currently doing anything for supply chain security? If you are, what are you doing? How important is it for you for these things? Like, do you view supply chain security as being a huge burden of, a huge amount of effort and those sorts of things? And then also some open questions about whether or not anybody would be interested in participating in like a pilot project coming out of the CNCF security tag to help out with some of that supply chain security stuff, especially given that, like, as much as we've been sort of talking about doing good stuff from a security perspective, we want to make sure that the projects underneath the CNCF itself are following, mostly following the best practices and all that great stuff, using the secure software factory reference architecture to build out, whatever, following good patterns on all those things, in order to better, I think there's a as they say, dog food it, right? Because we want to make sure that, we can point people to, for Alex's question, in some of the projects, I think it's probably worthwhile to, maybe if folks were interested, to just sort of, hey, I'll take these 10 projects, you take those 10 projects, and we can start posting in some of the Slacks, reaching out to some folks.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. And yeah, would be super helpful if we can just like do a last blast out. Just because people are just looking at the KubeCon stuff now. Okay, and Rowan, I see you in the call. Have you all managed to kind of do that threat modeling exercise for Flux yet? Is that kind of planned for a certain date if people want to join in on that?
Yeah, we kind of took a look through the initial documentation during the last European tech security meeting, which was a few weeks ago. So bear with me while I just recall that. The main thing, we'll have to reschedule it. The main thing was there that the Flux team didn't show up. We had a look through the docs. We had a few questions as to whether their kind of threat model for a shared cluster, how that overlapped with the security concerns around having sort of multiple tenants on the same cluster, and because there's a bit of overlap there, and didn't know how much they'd addressed in terms of segregating different Kubernetes resources between different users. But actually, just in conclusion, we've got to reschedule that. I'll speak to Andy about, be happy to work out how we reschedule that for a future date and circulate it amongst this group.
Yeah, I think that would be a very interesting exercise. And from my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, what the EMEA time zone meeting is planning is to kind of just do an hour long and do kind of the threat modeling real time. So I think that'll be a really cool exercise. Okay, so any other things? If not, we'll talk about KubeCon, things that happened there.
I don't know if this is the place to talk about it, but if we want to talk about any of the stuff with like verifiable SBOMs or writing up more about security assessments, then and we have time on the agenda, that might be worth discussing today.
Yeah, is that you? Is that you, Justin?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Zoom seems to have changed their policies again around like who's allowed to, like what information you have to provide them to let you sign in. So passcode's not good enough, and because they use all your data for marketing purposes and crap like that, I'm less willing to link it to my other identities. So that's why I'm signed in over the phone and had problems signing in before.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think let's cover kind of like general KubeCon, what happened, what's coming up next, and then if it kind of just segues to that, we can have the discussion. So KubeCon was just over last week. We had Cognitive Security Con. Thank you to Marina and Raga for spearheading that with together the LF events team. Quick note, we have Cloud Native Security Con coming up in February next year. This is going to be a standalone conference that's separate from KubeCon. It's going to be held in Seattle. So CFPs for that originally are due next week, but I believe there has been an extension. So please, within the next week or two, please put in your ideas, and we're hoping to have a pretty big conference there. Yeah, other than that, I want to open up to the floor, just like thoughts on folks, like what did people find interesting in KubeCon, like what were some of the talks, some of the discussions that were happening there. Go ahead, Shama.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to ask more about the upcoming SecurityCon. So I know normally things are tracked on GitHub issues. I don't see an issue in the tax security GitHub repo yet for that. So I'm wondering if there's an issue for that yet. And then I think I remember there being an email sent out about nominations for the program committee. Yes. I was on the program committee for the previous one. I'm interested to know if I'm interested in helping out again. So I wanted to know if how I can. I think there was an email when I filled out a survey, but I'm not sure if that was meant to be on a GitHub issue or not.
Yeah. So now that the LF is kind of running this as a standalone event, I think it's a little bit of a different process. So Cody should have sent out an email about this to the tax security mailing list. So yeah, I would directly respond to that. Okay. And then obviously I think when the time comes, then we will know kind of who is part of the community. And then we can kind of inform that a little bit better. But I would say just reply directly to Cody's email, fill out the form from Cody's email. And if you don't have that, feel free to drop a message in the tax security channel, and then I'll forward it to you.
Okay. And then you mentioned the CFP deadline being pushed off. I don't think a lot of people even knew that this was happening until KubeCon. I think it was a big deal made about it at KubeCon. I'm wondering if even with the extension, I think it was extended to, I don't remember exactly what date, from the 9th to like the 13th. I'm wondering if that's even enough.
I'm gonna let Frederick take that. I don't. I involved that part of things, Frederick.
So, yeah, I think part of it is that February is quite an aggressive timeline to get things out. So I think they're trying to balance the time necessary for people to review versus, and historically there have been problems where the reviewers have in previous cloud native security, the co-located events, there have been issues with the reviewers not actually having enough time to finish up all of the reviews. So I think part of it is trying to find the balance in order to help there. I definitely agree. It feels very quick, and especially just coming off of a KubeCon, it takes people time to decompress, and then now we're asking them to finish up a CFP immediately afterwards. So I definitely share that. In terms of structure as well, part of the reason I'm guessing that you're not finding anything in the GitHub within the GitHub issues, and I could be wrong with this, so please don't hold me to this, but I believe it's being structured as a Linux Foundation event, and with input and guidance from this particular group. At least that's my understanding of it. So, and so that's part of the reason you're probably not seeing a huge amount of details about how the organization itself is running, is because they're very likely following the internal structures there. That being said, I'm not one of the co-hosts for the new conference, so I cannot say for certain how they're setting up. I can speak to KubeCon, but not necessarily to everything that's going on in that space. But that was my understanding of the structure.
Okay. Got it. And given that that is the deadline for the CFP, is there, I want to, obviously share this on social media and wherever I can get people to realize that this is fast approaching. Is there a tweet or something like that was sent out about CFP?
Yeah, it is.
I did see something. I would recommend asking Cody if they can do a follow-up coming up, just to remind people, and a follow-up tweet and a follow-up email at the minimum.
Okay.
And we should certainly say things here as well, but I think this is a pretty small circle.
Right.
Yeah.
That was my concern.
Let me link you the tweet right now. I have it here.
Yeah, historically, I've also in the past have reached out to other groups, like as in go in and during the initial meeting make the announcement. So what you could do if you want to try to maximize participation would be to identify which groups are would be of interest within the open source community, and go chase down the appropriate people within OpenSSF, like or other various CNCF projects, or even reach out and see if there's any calls coming up. Like it's an expensive way to do it, but it's one of the more effective ways to get more diversity within the talks.
Got it. Okay. So I'll see if I can spread the word a bit. My circles.
Yeah. And that's an expensive way. So I don't blame you if that's not the path that you take. It's one that I have found to be effective, but there is a limit in terms of the amount of time people can go and talk to other groups. So.
Okay.
Pratik, you had a question about the co-located event at EU and NA. I believe that we won't be having it at EU, and that's part of kind of like this experiment of this new standalone event. But I think that we haven't ruled out that it won't be at NA yet. So I think the idea is to see how it goes for this February and EU, and to kind of see whether we do need, we still need whether there's still a demand for larger like security presence at KubeCon.
I see. Got it. Yeah, I feel like I think as we all of us said, yeah, it's an aggressive timeline to do it in February. But yeah, given that like KubeCon just ended, we can be like certain that the response in February won't be like as big as how we see during KubeCon, just because it's like 3.5 months away. So I think we should just be prepared that, hey, this first edition might not have as much of a response, but like trying to base off the decision for next KubeCons might be difficult, because the response for the first the Feb event will be like okay, it's not probably not as good as the KubeCon one, and we might then say, hey, this is probably not working out, so we should still do it during KubeCon. So I think that's something we should just keep in mind.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think like I had conversations with Angela as well as Emily, and I think they realized that there is going to be a trade-off, and then part of it is to see what happens.
Cool.
Awesome. So on that note, for CNS Con, I see Marina and Raga on the call. Would you be able to create a new issue for Cognitive Security Con 2023 NA, so that folks can start chiming in and expressing interest, and we point them to the right forms for the program committee?
Yeah, are we still hosting it the same way this time around, where we can organize it ourselves? Because I'm just confused about the structure for this one.
Yeah, we have to. The details of that are not finalized yet, but most probably Lindsay will still be the one. Fingers crossed. Lindsay will kind of be the one that's kind of overseeing this. I think there will definitely be like a few changes with how certain things are being run, but I don't think any of that is really finalized right now. So I think that's still kind of TBD.
Okay, great. So I can make an issue, but I feel like the action items will be undefined for now.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Just be express interest and point to the form to fill out for the program committee.
Absolutely. I have one question though. I had a word with a couple of other reviewers from the main KubeCon, and it seems like it usually occurs through referrals. And we here have opened up the forum for a larger community. And I think there was a mailer sent by the program committee as well on folks who wanted to take part as reviewers and things like that. But then the slot itself is really small. I think the recommended was 2 chairs and 4 reviewers. So that is too much interest, I believe. This is something I had a hard time last time to bring that number down from the number of expressed individuals and then the slots we had open. So do we still want to go ahead with this method?
So maybe we can have a chat with Lindsay and Angela and see whether we can, because I think with KubeCon, it's more, they have multiple tracks, they have multiple groups and collections of people kind of doing it. So there is a necessity to kind of streamline things a little bit. I think because this is only basically the security track and we have the most people as part of the community, we may be able to make a case to say that it's beneficial for us to have more reviewers and more folks kind of helping with the committee. So maybe yeah, I think we should have this conversation. I don't think we should put down the issue yet. I think let's message Angela and Lindsay and see what they say about that. Michael, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other things I think that some folks have been asking about as well is just like, given that this is just purely a subset of cloud native, does it make sense to get a bit more involved with some of the other things that are going on in some of the other LF groups, like the OpenSSF, given that they're doing a ton of stuff in just the general security space? Do we want to kind of like see if there's areas we can partner a bit more?
Yep, I think that would be great as well. Now that it's going so low, I think that would be helpful. And there was also a lot of feedbacks on if we could organize some security villages kind of thing, or dedicated tracks as such. So I'm still a little unclear on if it's going to be same as the CNS con, that the co-located tracks that we had, or if there is going to be any change in the format in the coming con. And the CFPs are out open and we have, I think, 10 more days to finalize. So that's another gray area that we need to discuss.
So I have a quick question. Raga and Marina, were you all both involved with defining the CFP?
No, I don't know who designed it.
No.
Okay. Okay, let me send out a email and then CC both of you, and want to make sure that we get a handle on this to see whether we need to be involved with some of this, or are they operating it a little bit differently.
Yeah, that would be very useful. And I heard there'll be a retrospective call after KubeCon, so that is also something Marina, have you heard? At least I have not.
No, I think that we should organize that, actually. I think we can do that maybe sometime next week once folks have recovered from KubeCon. We can, put something like that together.
I think the program committee members from all across would get together for retro. I think not just the security con related ones. So this probably would be initiated by Lindsay, I heard. I'm not very sure about this, but then this is something we could do as well.
Yeah, I think we should invite Lindsay, but I think we should just organize it to make sure that it happens.
Awesome. Okay. Any other questions, thoughts around KubeCon? Anything interesting, people on the flag, in terms of talks, in terms of yeah, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah. So I don't want this to just be oh my gosh, a lot of things seem like a mess. I do think that there's a lot of folks who have expressed the kind of like, hey, there's a ever growing number of LF events, and it's getting increasingly confusing to folks who are attending those events. as to like which ones they should be attending, why should they be attending them. Like I think a lot of folks were sort of surprised by the how quick the announcement was for the Cloud Native Security Con being spun off. It was like, I know there was some discussions internally, but then when it got spun off, it's like, oh, great, it's 4 months before the next one of these I have to now consider. A good deal of folks seem to have expressed just some general concerns about, like, they would love to see more guidance coming from the LF on what they should be interested in, what sorts of events are important for their use cases and that sort of thing. So just wanted to bubble that up.
I echo Michael's thoughts. This was kind of a surprise for us as well, at least.
Yeah, I think this will probably be about the retrospective of the next one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I agree, Michael, to your point of like generically too many LF events. Do you feel like there's have you expressed it to the LF yet, or are you looking for a way to express that?
I think, yeah. So one is I do want to bubble that up. So I know for myself, it's just a little confusing here and there, but I know that I'm involved enough in most of the groups that I'm usually like, oh, I've heard rumors that we might spin this off as its own thing. So like, I kind of was, half expecting that. But I think at KubeCon itself, when I was saying like, oh yeah, and Cloud Native Security Con in February, a lot of folks were like, wait, what? They're having another one? People seemed kind of a little confused that, hey, this thing was happening and it was this own sort of event. Not everybody, but some folks. And then even among some of the other folks in the different LF groups, like the CD Foundation, they're kind of saying, hey, is there things we could be doing to be a bit more involved with, like, something that is, I know Cloud Native Security Con is more just like cutting edge security con more than purely just like security on Kubernetes, which I think that's a little bit of, there's some marketing that needs to be done on that front to help educate folks. But I think some folks have sort of expressed desire to kind of say, hey, what could we do to be more involved or better understand this? And yeah, I think it's just a lot of confusion on a lot of folks' parts, even within some of the other groups. And yeah, I would love to be able to bubble this up to whomever, whether it's Chris or whether it's somebody else.
Okay, I'll have that in the list of issues that we talk about once we get in touch with the LF event team. Cool. Any other thoughts around KubeCon and Cloud Native Security Con?
So beyond that, I think everything went very well, and I was very, I thought it was a good deal of, I think it was a good balance between all the different tracks, like, your supply chain security, your eBPF security, your, general sort of Kubernetes security. I think it went, I think it was a good balance, and something that, yeah.
Yeah, between. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just adding another comment.
No, I also wanted to hear, like, in between like a 6-hour con and the other co-located events, do people think that they were kind of like spread too thin?
Yeah, I was just saying, in terms of attendance, I think we had decent attendance. Although we might just want to like err on the side of having like a smaller room so people don't appear like as spread out. in terms of the audience. So like a couple of logistics items which we can improve. For example, like, the speaker was in the center, but the screens were pretty far, that the audience generally ends up being in front of the screens and not, so it's not as engaging for the speaker. But those are, I think, minor items which we can improve in the next con. I would just say, like, maybe having like a smaller room which gets more filled up quickly, that might just look a little more better than having a very bigger room with people spread out.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I remember kind of trying to take pictures of the slides from the middle of the room and just not getting a good picture there. Ashtoma?
Sorry, yeah. So I would add, I mentioned this in the document that Raga linked, but I thought some of the talks that were pre-recorded weren't as engaging because the fact that they were pre-recorded. I didn't feel too great about those.
Wait, so do you mention like the kind of presentation of the pre-recorded talks weren't good, or just more generally something about pre-recorded talks?
I think having a pre-recorded talk at a live event just isn't a great fit. It doesn't have the interactivity. It just doesn't have the same engagement. Pre-recorded, you don't have to go to a conference if you're pre-recorded. I feel like if you're going to a conference, you want to interact between the speaker and the audience, and you want there to be something more live. So I put that in the retro doc, but I just wanted to mention that as well.
I understand what you mean, but I think at the same time there's kind of like that part of it where like people can't travel. These are restrictions, but I do think that's a call out in the sense that maybe we need to figure out how to make the virtual talks more engaging.
Right. Yeah. Maybe there's a way to make it feel like they're in the room more than just having them talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think along those lines, I think it has less to do with it being virtual and more with it to do with it being pre-recorded.
Yes.
But I also recognize that technical challenges can lead to, these things like, because I know the internet at KubeCon this year, a lot of folks, their demos, which relied on Docker Hub, all of a sudden they were like, hey, I'm being rate limited. So yeah, there's stuff there too.
Yeah.
But that's part of the fun, right? You just that's the thrill of like going for talk.
So we should reach out to some of the Docker people. I mean, we do have connections with some of them to see if they will lift the rate limit for the conference for people doing demos.
That'd be nice.
I mean, we could literally ask Justin Cormack to see if there's any possibility of mechanically doing that. I mean, granted, we do have to be very careful. They are a company who has their own set of expenses, but it would definitely be a nice thing to do.
Brent.
Yeah, I was just going to call out, and again, maybe this is the wrong venue, retrospective items from KubeCon, specifically catered to speakers, was the kind of like the presentation. People do a lot of things a lot of different ways. But if you wanted to present your material and you presented it on your screens and you had like your presenter notes up on your screen, like that worked really well until you got to a live demo. And then I switched over to a live demo and I'm playing the game of kind of like running a mirrored terminal to the screens in order to see like what I'm doing, as opposed to like maybe having some separate screen. And this is a very like, who manages the audio video at events like these, and if it would be possible to, have kind of facilitate or enhance what live demos look like for those who are doing so, because I get a lot of value out of live demonstrations, and my presentation was, I think, more valuable to others because it was live demoed.
So maybe something like with a secondary monitor just in front of you to kind of like see the screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So we are 10 minutes out. Justin, I think that maybe if you want to spend like a quick 2 minutes, I think for like kind of like a more detailed rundown on what you want to talk about, that's probably better for the supply chain working group. But I think if you want to give kind of a quick 2 to 5 minutes general high level elevator pitch so that we can direct people to the supply chain working group to kind of go more into technical details.
Okay, that's fine. So there was an idea that came out of some discussions at KubeCon around having a type of SBOM where it's called a verifiable SBOM. And the idea is that all of the steps that went into actually making the SBOM are verified cryptographically as having been performed. And so you actually have an SBOM that's, you know, because one of the big problems with them is that they're very rarely, if ever, accurate. And so this would give you something that is actually accurate and is actually machine verified in a certain way. And if you want to read more details about that, there is a verifiable SBOM channel, Slack channel on the CNCF Slack. And we started to have discussions about this. And I think later this week or at some later point, we'll start to have meetings also to discuss it. I appreciate everybody who's been active so far. I think in the meeting, we had about a dozen, I think more than a dozen people participate. And then afterwards, another like probably 5 or 6 people have left detailed comments in different places in the document. So encourage everybody to go ahead and do so. And that document should be pinned in the in that Slack channel if you're curious. So I'll pause for a moment in case anyone has a question or thought or concern about that before I talk about the second thing I wanted to discuss. All right, and the second thing that I wanted to bring up was this idea about writing up something like a book or some kind of training course that would revolve around security assessments. And I found myself sort of repeatedly doing the same thing to teach people how to do the security self-assessment process from the project side, to teach security reviewers in our group who don't have a lot of experience how to do the things they need to for an assessment, and even talking with people about how to use the assessments we produce in the most effective ways. And I think that this is something where there's a tremendous amount of expertise from different perspectives inside the group. And so people that are interested in participating in this and have expertise, I think it would be good to put something together and to do this kind of collectively. I've spoken with the fellow at the Linux Foundation, whose name I'm going to pull up in just a second, Tom Sarowitz, and he's very interested and excited about this. And I'd like to do this as a free material for anybody to look at and use to help them to do security assessment type work for their organization. If you're interested in participating in this, then let me know. Probably a private channel or either a message on the Tag Security Slack, or you can send a private message to me also if you have questions about this. And at some point, what I'll probably do is sit and try to dump like, you know, like the first few chapters of the book, and then other people can take a look and see. But I want the way we would do this is I'd want to, after laying some of the groundwork, I'd like to have different people's perspectives and opinions on the best way to do it, because I don't think it's a settled science that there's the one true way to do something like a security assessment. And so I think it would be, you know, unfortunate if the book only had a few perspectives. I think it would be stronger by having others chime in, and we could all kind of work together to collaborate and co-author something interesting and useful.
So Justin, this you have an issue open to this, right? Can you link it in the chat as well? And I think since this is going to be work out of the tag security group, I think the next steps for this is to kind of like create a schedule. I know like writing based on the issue, it seems like a very big undertaking. And I think we want to make sure that that's successful in terms of making sure we get the engagement and people don't fall off. So I think that if we have a plan and kind of figure out what are good ways for folks to engage and that we get the right people in, and see how we can help out from the community side of this to make it successful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very open to suggestions, but my thinking is that for the parts that are less controversial, that are just kind of framing what's in scope, what's out of scope, how these things are useful and stuff like this, that it might be good to have somebody do a rough draft of all that material. And then that people will be more interested. Of course, they'll want to have suggestions there, but they'll probably be more interested in sort of tips and tricks and thoughts around the boundary cases and the edges and ways in which they do things that are kind of clever rather than like what is a threat matrix and how does it work kind of text. And so I'm volunteering to do that initial dump, and I expect that I would have something in probably around the first of the year would be my guess. So like the end of this year should be able to have draft material together for those parts of it. And at that point I would reach out, and then hopefully we would all kind of, people who have expertise and want to participate would be able to chime in.
Yeah, so exactly what you said about kind of writing that down and then putting it in the issue. Just so that, because like a lot of people that are just looking at the issue may not really see the context of like, oh, you're gonna work on the first chapter and they're gonna publish it, and this is like kind of like, oh, if I want to be engaged in this, I should kind of maybe think about having some time next March to look at this. You kind of get where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I'll try to add something to the issue. If I don't capture it, then feel free to add things yourself.
Awesome. Yeah, I know it's been a while, but we have kind of like a new process to kind of write those things down, and then I'll link it to you offline.
Here. Yeah.
Cool. I think we're at the top of the hour, so any quick ones? If not, I'll see everyone in 1 or 2 weeks. Awesome.